I can rehearse strategies to help me when I am in a wild brain.
Review the actions that you made last week for our expectation, we are mindful, I can rehearse strategies to use while I'm in wild brain. Have a quick discussion with your class about the wild brain and what it looks like, what its needs are. What was the home strategy that you chose? What was the whole class strategy that you chose? How do you think you went with each of those? Give yourself a rating out of 5. Last week, when we introduced the wild brain, we practiced some whole class strategies. This week, we are looking further into the personal strategies that you can rehearse to help yourself when you are in wild brain. Have a quick brainstorm of some strategies that you think might help you if you were feeling like a 1 in wild brain. These are some strategies that Reboot suggests for us when we are in wild brain to get us back out of wild brain and get our whole brain working together. We're going to unpack some of these strategies together today, but I would encourage you to unpack the rest as a class later. We can see Miss Baker rocking forward and back, and side to side, gently, and being in nature. That was a really good strategy that we just saw Miss Baker using. What need do you think this fed? Do you think there's anything that you might need to do before you use this strategy during class time? Mr. Dice is taking deep breaths in through his nose as he traces up his fingers and deep breaths out through his mouth as he traces down his fingers. He will trace his hand twice, so he takes 10 deep breaths. Which need do you think this is meeting?
I'm eating an apple at the moment. Now the reason I'm eating this apple is I need to feed my wild brain. Fruit and vegetables have a lot of really, really important things that help to feed my wild brain. They're full of nutrients and fluids and energy, but most importantly, they allow me to crunch. When my jaw's moving like that, and my jaw's working hard to crunch, 2 things happen. 1, it forces me to breathe through my nose, which allows me to slow down my breath and oxidize my breath more so I get a deeper, fuller breath. And 2, it helps me to reset the chemicals in my brain that might be making me angry or anxious or upset or really any of those things that are making me feel like a 1 or a 2. Now, if you feel like you need to feed your wild brain, ask your teacher and try and go get a crunchy piece of fruit and vegetables from your lunchbox.
Thanks, Mr. Lynch, for reminding us how important it is to bring our crunchy fruits and vegetables to school and what that does for our brain. Let's have a look at Miss Edwards now using her Stop, Reboot, Go zone. Which need do you think this is meeting? Review your class expectations for how to access your class's calm down space. We are about to do an activity with Mr. Lynch, so find a place on the carpet where you will be able to follow along.
Right, so today we're going to do a few quick stretches. Now, the most important thing we do when we stretch is we need to get to a point where our body is a little bit uncomfortable. If I just do this and stretch to my toes and I'm not reaching or I'm not uncomfortable, I don't feel that stretch along the back of my legs, I'm not really doing much of a stretch. Now 2, the second and more important thing we need to do is really take deep, full breaths into our lungs. So I'm going to lean into my stretch, I'm going to breathe in, and I'm going to hold it for a few seconds. And then I'm going to breathe out really slowly. Now I've done 3 breaths. I like to do either 3 or 5 breaths for each stretch that I do. The important thing is just put yourself in a position where you're a bit uncomfortable, where you're kind of stretching something. Anything can be a stretch. I can sit here and reach this way, and I'm stretching down the side here. I can change my seat, and I can stretch forward. I might even sit in a triangle pose, and lower school students, you'll know this one from PE, and stretch up. The important thing is that I'm breathing through my nose, I'm holding my breath in, and I'm calming down my mind. I'm not thinking about anything except the stretch I feel in my body and the breath coming through my nose. Whenever you feel like you need to feed your wild brain, try going and doing some stretches. Do some different movements. Any movements will do. It doesn't matter as long as you feel that stretch in your body and you are breathing.
Thank you so much for this amazing strategy, Mr. Lynch. I would love to use this all the time, but I think it's best if we ask our teacher before we use this one in class as well. Alright, so today the wild brain feeding strategies that we looked at were eating healthy foods with a lot of crunch, breathing, so we had the finger breathing strategy and the rocking breathing in nature strategy. We also showed you how we could use a chill out space, and we did some stretching for a focus and centering activity. All of these are great suggestions, so I want you to review with your class what it would look like to use a distraction to help calm someone down in wild brain, what it would look like to use a ball game to calm someone down in wild brain, and what it would look like to use some rhythmic games. So we've got some clapping games that we could play as well. There are a lot of really good strategies here, but as we've pointed out, a lot of them require help or permission from your teacher for you to be able to use them during class time. Remembering that our speech doesn't work very well while we're in wild brain, it would be very hard for us to communicate these ideas using words. So let's come up with some actions to use instead. Discuss as a class an action that suits each of these strategies and establish some ground rules for what will happen if you show your teacher one of these hand signs while you're one in wild brain. Which strategies are you going to rehearse so that we can use them when we're in wild brain? Plot them on this calendar so we can rehearse as many strategies as possible over the fortnight. Your challenge this week is to rehearse as many strategies as you can and use the ones that work best for you when you feel yourself slipping into wild brain. As a class, complete the success criteria so you can tell if you are meeting this week's goal. Your teachers are going to be flooding your charts with stamps if you are getting up to the 4-star or the 5-star for this goal in the next fortnight.